Today we are going to start Chapter 7. We will cover half of Chapter 7 before Term 1. That'll be all cell anatomy, or the different parts of the cell, and then we will cover the other half of Chapter 7 at the beginning of Term 2. So we're going to start with cell introduction today. We'll do about half of the organelles, and then there will be another video, or I will be in class tomorrow to cover the other half of the organelles. You will also label and color a diagram when I get back to help you study for the term assessment and this test as well. So Robert Hooke, you hopefully have heard this name before. He was a monk, and he is the one that is credited with the discovery of the cell. He called the chambers that he saw cells because they reminded him of a monastery's tiny rooms, which were also called cells. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he used a different kind of microscope, a more simple microscope, and came up with the same conclusion. So he supported Robert Hooke's discovery. And I would highlight Robert Hooke. The video talked about prokaryote versus eukaryote, and I'm going to hit this super hard when I come back. You need to know this for the rest of the entire year, especially when we get to bacteria, fungi, plants, animals, all that kind of stuff. Prokaryotes are cells that do not have a nucleus. One way I help kids remember this is I have them underline the word pro and then write the word no above it, using the rhyming as a reminder. There's no nucleus. The genetic material is not contained in a nucleus. You saw in the video just kind of floats in the cytoplasm. These are generally a lot less complicated than eukaryotes. Eukaryotes do contain a nucleus. In years past, we've underlined the EU, which makes the U sound, and then wrote the word do above it. U and do contain a nucleus. So the genetic material, or the DNA, is separated from the rest of the cell inside that nucleus. This entire slide is mucho important. You should highlight the whole thing. The cell theory has three basic parts. Number one, all living things are composed of cells. Cells are the basic units of structure and function in living things. And new cells are produced from existing cells, meaning, hey, it can't be magic, and oh, poof, there's a new cell just out of thin air. They do have to come from existing cells. I would highlight the three parts of the cell theory. You'll have to know those. And this kind of reviews a little bit about more what the video talked about. Organelles literally means little organs. So these are the different parts of the cell and the different jobs that they have is what we're going to talk about. The cells are divided into two main parts. You have the nucleus and the things enclosed in the nucleus, and then you have the cytoplasm and everything else that's in the cytoplasm. And I would highlight organelles, and I would highlight the two main parts of the cell. As we go through, I'm going to compare the cell to a factory. This is a good guidance for your cell project that you will have during this unit. If you read the instructions yesterday, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You may not use a factory for your analogy project. We'll talk more about that when I come back. But that's what I'm going to do to kind of help you understand the jobs that all of these parts have. So the first one we're going to talk about is the cytoplasm. This is the one most kids know off the top of their head. And it's kind of that jelly-like liquid or gooey part that fills up the cell outside the nucleus. It's kind of a cushion, holds all the organelles. It also contains a lot of water, which gives it that gooey part. And if you look at the picture, it's all of the yellow portion outside of the organelles. The cell or the plasma membrane, and you can use both terms, they mean the same thing. What you need to know for now is that it allows materials to pass in and out of the cell. So that would be this kind of dark purple line on the outside there. And the unit that we cover right at the beginning of term 2 is all about the plasma membrane, letting things in and out. So all I need you to know right now is that's what it does, is it lets things go in and out of the cell. The nucleus is this guy right here in the middle, big purple guy, and it contains all of the cell's DNA, which is this kind of looks like hair, curly cues hanging out there in the middle. It also has instructions for making proteins, which are super important. We will talk about in another lecture, and other important molecules. So basically, it's the brain of a cell. If I am comparing this to a factory, this would be the boss, the one that tells everything else what to do. The nuclear envelope is a lot like the plasma membrane. That is, and it's not labeled on here, but it's kind of this boundary on the outside, and this lets things go in and out of the nucleus. So it's the same function as the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is for the whole cell. The nuclear envelope of the nuclear membrane is just for the nucleus. Chromatin is this in here, and you saw that in the video. What it does is it's going to condense down to form those chromosomes, or those X's that you saw in the videos, to allow it to pass from generation to generation. The nucleolus, it's not labeled in here, but it also is in the nucleus. It's going to be a small, dense region, so kind of like a hard ball in the nucleus, and that's where the assembly of proteins begins. I would highlight chromosomes, and I would also highlight that the nucleolus is where the assembly of proteins begins. It's just a little cell joke for you guys in the middle of lecture. The last things we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the ribosomes and the ER. Ribosomes are super duper important because they help produce proteins by following coded instructions from the nucleus. All right, and if I go back to this picture here, these little dots all around in the cytoplasm, those are ribosomes. Right. These would be maybe workers or small machines in a factory. They're making making proteins based on the instructions from the boss or from the nucleus. The endoplasmic reticulum can also be called the ER. This is a site where lipids or fats are assembled, and you saw that in the video. There's two different types. Again, rough ER is the site of protein synthesis. You know this word right here, synthesis means to put together. So this is where proteins are put together. It has ribosomes. So if we again go back to this picture here, the endoplasmic reticulum that you can see right over here has all those blue dots. So this over here is rough ER because it has ribosomes. And what I have kids do is I have them circle the R in rough and the R in ribosomes to make that connection. The other type of ER is smooth ER, and this would be down here where there are no ribosomes. What this ER is used to do is it does lots of different tasks. The most prevalent one is detoxifying, okay, or helping get rid of bad stuff. So what you guys are now going to be doing for the rest of the hour is you have your cell preview that's due tomorrow, and you also have a crossword. That's a pretty big one for this chapter. So you should have about half the notes filled out, should have watched the video before this, and now you have the rest of the hour to work on the preview and to work on the crossword.